Good morning, or I guess technically good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming today. It's kind of new for all of us up here doing a briefing the week of special session, but we thought that it was important to get folks together, both in the room and online, and just talk about where we've been, where we're going, what we expect. I'm not sure how many people have been involved in the political process at the state level or any level. So we thought it'd be good just to remind folks how it all works. And not to be discouraged if you don't see anything great. So as introduction, my name is Todd Cruz. I'm the board chair for Voices for Safer Tennessee. We have Aaron Rogas to my right, Brian and Holly from our lobbying teams. So Holly Kirby and Brian Bivens, who represent us up on the Hill. And we hope today will serve to be educational. We also hope that you guys will ask questions. And if you can't hear us or you need something, just yell. But just to start off, right, it's interesting to stand up here and tell the story. And, at least 800 of you out of the 20,000 members we have today were part of the very beginning. But Voices has really taken off in what I would call a very positive way. This has been an interesting journey over the last couple of months. The catalyst for the whole discussion, of course, was the horrific incident at Covenant. But as we began to peel back the layers of the onion as it relates to firearm safety in this state, we're on the wrong trajectory across many, many fronts. And there's a lot of us that clearly by the membership that believe in the same thing. And so as what started out as a volunteer group, we have formalized, if you will, we're official 501c4. We have an operating board. We have an advisory board, which I'll talk about in a minute. We've held meetings out in Davidson County, of course, but starting to get outside of Davidson County, because I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that when you have, whether that is the number of firearms stolen out of vehicles, whether it is some of the activity that's happening that involve firearms, whether it's the horrific incident at Covenant, I think those of us in Davidson County realize something has to change. But part of the strength of this organization is that it is 20,000 people large now and continues to grow. And we have presence in 94 of the 95 counties. And that's how we're going to see change happen. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen this week. So I think level setting on expectations is also important. We will move the needle this week. I think the fact that we're having the discussions is a movement of the needle, but it will take time. I think the other thing to say, and the important thing is none of this, whether it's us sitting up here, whether it's the 20,000 people, whether it's the 94 counties, none of this would have happened without the 20,000 plus volunteers that keep signing up. And when you look at the polling data from Memphis to Mountain City, there is a desire for change. But it will take time. So we just want to say thank you before we get started today. Thank you for everything, for your voice, for your effort, for the concern, for the collaboration. I've been around politics for 20 something years, 25 and some change, dating myself. But it's very rare to see Republicans, Democrats, independents, people from all walks, moms, dads, you name it. We're all together trying to achieve what we think are the common sense, pragmatic solutions, right? And so we have anchored on, we need to be able to ensure that people who are buying a firearm are allowed to buy a firearm, right? Which is why background checks are so important in making sure there's no loopholes involved in the system. We also need to understand and underscore the value of gun owner responsibility, right? With the Second Amendment comes rights. And I don't think anybody's going to deny that. And this state is a Second Amendment state. But with those rights come enormous responsibility, which means if you're going to own a firearm, you should store it securely where it can't be used for nefarious purposes or accidentally accessed by a child. And then the last thing that we're really about is the temporary transfer. And this is, mental health is a huge issue in this state. It's a huge issue in this country. When somebody is facing a mental health crisis, there ought to be a mechanism to take firearms out of reach, not permanently, but temporarily, to allow them to get the help that they need. So that is why, as an organization, we really anchored on those three tenets: background checks, secure storage, and temporary transfer or emergency protection orders. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the process. As I said in the beginning, it wouldn't have happened without all of you. One of the things I think I also want to say as we get started, and this is for everybody in the room and everybody online, there'd be a lot of emotion this week. This is a politically charged issue. This has a lot of different competing views. And I think the most important thing that we need to remember as we're getting into this week is, one, it's the beginning, but two, so far we have shown up as folks that want to sit down and be a resource. We're Tennesseans solving a problem in Tennessee, and we're doing so through a very respectful manner where we can have dialogue and civil conversations, and we may or may not disagree all the time, but if we can keep moving the needle, that's what we want to do. And so to do that means, practicing a little decorum and making sure we're engaging and showing up in the right way. So I would encourage everybody who's going to get engaged this week to keep that in the back of the mind. We want to walk out and let all of the others who may show up in a different way do their thing, but we're going to continue pushing on, and we want to be here for the long haul. And so in that vein, one of the things that we've done in the last week, and you can see it online, so I won't list all their names, is we put together an advisory board to help us think through policy, help us think through long-term structure and stability. And one of the members of the advisory board is Dr. Frist, Senator Frist. He has been a much appreciated added voice to our discussion as he thinks about it from a much bigger lens. And helps us think through what the future looks like. So Erin Rogus is here with us. Erin is all things policy for the senator, and I'm going to turn it over to her for just a minute.
Great. Thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate it. And I apologize, I'm losing my voice a little bit here. We had a terrific event last night at St. Henry's, 100 plus showing up in support of voices, of learning more about this issue. So we really are having a movement right now. And thank you all for being here today. As Todd said, I am the senior policy advisor for former Senator Bill Frist. And I'm also a member of the Voices Policy Committee. And I'll share you a little bit about my background and why I am here and why I care so much about this issue. I previously worked in Congress in DC for a Republican member who was also cared deeply about gun safety issues from a law enforcement perspective. And when I was there in 2012, we saw the Sandy Hook shooting, and I was working for a congressman who at the time, he had introduced a universal background check law. He had introduced a piece of legislation that would have closed the terror gap. You wouldn't believe this, but if you actually are on the terrorist watch list, you can actually purchase a firearm. And we thought, okay, we're finally going to see some action. The parents, the survivors came down to DC, and we didn't see any movement. And it was really hard. And I think you all have kind of seen that cycle a little bit happening, where we're seeing, these mass shooting events occurring, and we don't see any movement happening. And it's heartbreaking. Senator Frist has become engaged in this issue because it's become a public health crisis, right? Here in Tennessee and nationwide, firearms are now the #1 cause of death for our children. In 2020, they surpassed car accidents. So as a parent, as a mom of 3, who just sent her oldest daughter to kindergarten this past week, I want to be able to, when I tell her I'm going to keep her safe, I really want to be able to keep that promise. Senator Frist, as a physician, as a surgeon, he wants, first and foremost, to protect the health and safety of our people. And if our kids are dying from this cause at a rate faster than anything else, we need to do something different. We need to take responsibility here and act. And I do want to say that I think we are at a turning point. We're at a teachable moment here. Senator Frist says this is a teachable moment that we can learn from and act on, and continue to engage the legislature, the state on, because, like I said, I was there at Sandy Hook, nothing happened. That was heartbreaking. Fast forward last year to 2022, Uvalde. I'm sure obviously you all saw the horrible stories about that school shooting. And finally, we actually saw something happen. Congress actually came together on a bipartisan basis with Republicans, even a Republican from Texas, leading the charge to pass the most significant piece of firearm safety legislation in nearly 30 years. And so that was a big change. Did it solve all the problems? Certainly not. There's a lot more that needs to be done, but it was the first step. We're opening the door to change. This obviously, we had the Covenant shooting here, which was it was a mile from my office. I remember the day vividly, heartbreaking. And, you know, we're obviously in a red state, Second Amendment state. We have a governor who did not run on the issue of firearm safety. But after this event, he paused and said, we need to do something different. He called on the state legislature to act on an order of protection law. And when that didn't happen, he called them back for this special session to really consider public safety. So I think we are in a really seeing a turn of events. You all are a big part of a reason we're seeing that shift. I will say, you know, with Sandy Hook, it took 10 years for us to get something kind of done, right? So we're not going to solve everything in this next week, but it is the beginning of a process. And if you all stay engaged, we can keep making progress. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Brian Bivens here, who's going to give us a little bit of a background on kind of what we're expecting.
All right, thank you. My name is Brian Bivens. I'm a partner in a lobbying firm here in Nashville with my brother. My dad started the firm. He was a legislator from Cleveland, Tennessee, where I grew up. I've lived in Nashville and lobbied 24 years. I have 3 kids, and you know, this is I think change is it going to happen this week like we've been talking about? Probably not. But the fact that Republican governor who won in rural counties in Tennessee has called the legislature back into special session is a win already. I've been lobbying 24 years. There's been less than 10 special sessions. The fact that there's 100+ bills that have been filed means there are a lot of people thinking about the issue. And I'll say a year ago, that wasn't the case. Tennessee kept sliding, you know, making guns easier to get and kind of laws were changing and things like that over, you know, the past decade, so to speak. But now we're having a different kind of conversation. It's about safety. And so even though it might not look like a win, I will tell you from my perspective, my professional experience, just the fact that we're here talking about it and the fact that we're going to spend 5 days talking about it, that's a win. That's a big win. You know, I think it's also, we've heard rumors that, you know, we're on the national stage, you know, this week, talk about this, and meeting with Governor Lee's staff last year, talking through different policy objectives and things like that. I think, I don't want to speak for him by any means, but I think him calling them back in special session is starting the narrative. And I think that he felt like that was his role. So what is a special session? What is that? What's going to happen? What do you do? So they'll come back in tonight and convene in their session. So formality of the House starting, the Senate starting. The only thing they have to do constitutionally is they have to hear a bill. It has to be heard on the floor 2 times or read twice. So tonight they'll read bills on the floor. Tomorrow morning they'll read bills on the floor, and at that point those bills can then be assigned to committee. And so we haven't seen the House schedule yet, but the Senate can still file bills until 6 o'clock tonight, where the House has already done their cutoff date. So what's in the House hopper is what the House hopper is. And in Tennessee, you have to have a House and a Senate member, both signed on to the bill for it to go on through the process. You can't have a House member run a bill that doesn't have a Senate sponsor. Sometimes you can talk about it, but in this expedited time frame, I don't think that's going to happen. So later tonight, we'll know exactly what we have and what we're dealing with. And expedited time frame. So typically, the rules of the House and the Senate would be, you've got to file an amendment. It has to be public notice 24 hours in advance with the committee and all those things. And they're going to tonight adopt a package of rules specifically for special session. And they'll likely waive a lot of those things just because they're trying to move this very fast. And they do this every year towards the end of their session. They'll put in what they call a flow motion. So our expectation is that everything will be very fast. They don't have to have, a bill can be heard in committee in the morning, and it can be heard right after that in a different committee if it needs to go to finance. It can be heard in calendar rules consecutively right there, and then maybe be on the floor that night. So everything could go very fast. And that's all different than the regular session, except for kind of the last week. We don't, like I said, we don't know exactly who all is going to have a House and Senate sponsor. We'll know that by 6 o'clock tonight. And I think that's it for me for now. Holly?
I get the easy part of this. Brian gave you the details, but I'm Holly Kirby with Johnson Poss Kirby Government Relations, and we're one of the other lobbying firms working on the Hill for you guys this year. And we're really excited to do that because, you know, I have 2 kids, my partners all have families, and this is something that we think about every day as we're dropping them off at school and ways that things could be better. And so we're excited, but I'm here just to let you know that this is a win to be able to have the opportunity to have this special session and to have the opportunity to have legislators' ears opened and listening to the things we have to say for a special time, to hear the issues that we're concerned about, to hear the education that we want to provide to them, to help them understand, because this is a start. This is a beginning of the conversation, and these conversations are going to continue. And so what I want to do is just encourage you to take advantage of, while it might be an expedited schedule this week, take advantage of the opportunity that legislators are listening. And those legislators are people just like you. They look a lot like this room. They are Democrats, Republicans, dads, moms, grandparents, soccer coaches. You know, they go to church, they work in jobs, they think about things the way that you think about things. And so I always like to encourage any group of association, whoever we're representing, who's going to be talking to legislators. Initially, that can be really intimidating and something that's scary, but they're just people. Respect the office that they hold. That's an amazing thing that they put their name on the ballot and ran for that office, but they're just like you and me. I don't either, Siri. Sorry. She didn't understand. I don't either. But they're just like you and me, and they want to hear what's important to you. So I think if I had a challenge for you today, is to make sure that you let your legislator know what is important to you out of this fight and why it's important and why you're committed to continuing this conversation, that this isn't something you're just here for this week, that you will continue to talk to them and continue to work to find solutions. And I think that's why we're having success with legislators. They like that message from us, that we are committed to taking the wins as we get them and moving the ball down the court. So I would just encourage you to find those opportunities this week while their ears are turned on and they're really listening, to have those conversations with the people that you elect.
Thanks, Holly, and thanks, Brian. I think, it's very challenging right now because there's a lot of noise, right? Like, I think Brian said it best too. We're the only game in town in the country having a legislative session in the middle of summer. So there's going to be a lot of noise around everything that's happening. And I think our job as a group of Tennesseans trying to solve this problem in Tennessee is to stay focused on the things that matter. And we'll do that through pushing out updates, the legislation that we support, what we oppose, what we're going to try to talk about as we sift through it all. And to Brian's point, it'll be tonight before we can finally finish all that up. So it's hard to say, hey, we're for House Bill 1222, because we don't know exactly, who's got a sponsor, who doesn't, what's going to be in it. But we'll try to push all that information out in real time. I think my question for Brian and or Holly is, how fast do you think this week will be? And what do you expect to come out of it? Like, truly expect to come out of it? You expect a little bit of movement, a lot of movement, no movement at all, just the conversation? What does your gut tell you? Not to put you guys on the spot.
Thanks, Todd. Yeah, not to put us on the spot. It's going to be loud, like you said. You got a lot of people here who are using the opportunity to raise money for their organization one way or the other, with the wrong thing in mind. But we're Tennesseans, you're Tennesseans. We want to see change. the long game, like you talked about, is very important. What I have heard about from some legislators is knowing that this group is here and that we're going to be here. And we're going to help them if they're in trouble, and we're going to help them understand more perspectives than they've maybe heard in the past. Expectation to what we hear, what we're going to see this week. I think people really want to be done on Thursday. I think that when they do their resolutions and stuff tonight, they're going to give themselves till Saturday to do it. They always push hard to finish quick. Expectations that a lot of bills that are going to pass that have a lot of change for Tennesseans, for me, are very, very low. Okay. And I hate to be the person to tell you that. Again, the fact that we're having the conversation is a good start. It takes a long, long time to affect policy change. We talk about wine and grocery stores a lot in all of our things. I was involved in that. That took 10 years, 8 years, something like that. I mean, and how easy is that, right? I mean, the polling honestly looks very similar. It's, again, the opportunity to have the conversation for me as a parent, with Tennesseans, from Tennesseans, take your Tennessean message to them makes me proud to do so. And maybe some of these bills that don't get heard, or at least they're out there now and people can talk about them more in the future, dive into them. Maybe, hey, that's a really good idea. Hey, that Republican had a really good idea. Hey, that Democrat had a really good idea. Let's figure out where the holes are, where the gaps are in our system, and see if we can't close them. That's what we've heard a little bit from some of the other members are like, is the TBI talking with the courts? Are they doing it electronically? No, some of these courts are still on paper, and they're given an extraordinary amount of time to move records over. Like, if you can just nip around the edges and get out of there, that's my hope of what we can do. Holly, you got anything to add?
I agree. And especially around the example you gave with the courts, there's a lot of things that may need to be resolved this special session that gives a better footing for us to work from in future sessions. So the court records, reporting things to the national databases, making sure that all of that is happening. If that's not happening, what good is it to have expanded background checks? Why have that if the information that's being reported up to those systems is not accurate? So I think those are important conversations to be having. And the fact that, we are talking about mental health, making sure that we're covering mental health needs and putting money out there, that gets us a good footing for, hey, we're taking care of people. And then when we start talking about those temporary transfer laws, we know we're working from a better foothold that we have at that point. So I think that's also something to keep in mind, is that some of these things, while they may look small, are very necessary to make the future things that we want to see work right.
Thank you, Holly, and thank you, Brian. I'm trying to read handwriting. So we have some questions from the audience. I think we'll put these out on the table. If I butcher this and you wrote it, please tell me. Despite the modest wins we've described with the special session, I think we all know nothing directly related to gun safety will be accomplished this week. The bills that will be considered, I think this says, 10 out of 100 ? Seem to be removed from the intended purpose of this session. I got it. My question is, what next? How do we keep and apply the crucial sense of urgency in order to accomplish meaningful change? It's a good question. So what do we do now? What happens after this week? Either one of you?
Well, I think you just have to keep those conversations going. This week, you've got to build a relationship with these legislators to make sure that they understand that you are a trusted resource, someone who is going to give them the honest answer, someone that they can come back to and ask, hey, somebody brought me this bill. What do you think about this? And if that relationship is never built, then we can't continue with those next conversations. So I would say, you're going to have months now between the end of this special session and the start of the next regular session in January, where they're at home, they're back in their districts, they're in their offices, they're at the coffee shop, they're at the chamber meeting. You need to be talking to them at home, making sure that they hear from you there, not just here at the legislature. They need to hear that it's important to you and your friends and the people that you influence at home.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a million lobbyists, but the thing that only really matters to people is what people are saying back home. So when you start, if you can be a catalyst for conversations in the community, again, at their chamber, their Sunday school, whatever it is, I mean, that's how you move legislators in Tennessee. And, we have to see what happens this week before we can decide what the future looks like. But I do know that it's going to be a long game, but one that every Tennessean should be able to commit to. So we got to see what happens this week before we know exactly what the next step will be.
Thank you. I would say from the Voices perspective, just to add on to this question, they're both right. We've got to get outside of Davidson County. So I think for everybody in this room and online, the end game or what's next is to talk to your neighbor, talk to your people in your Sunday school. If they have family somewhere from, again, Memphis to Mountain City, we should be having these discussions outside of the Davidson County echo chamber. And I think that for us, that's probably what's next. We're going to get through the special session, let the dust settle, hope that they address some of the building blocks. I will say, even though when you look at the governor's proclamation, right, there's 18 items on there. 18. Number 18 is the financial piece, but out of the 17, even though it may not mention firearm safety or firearm issues, you can kind of put them together and say, well, oh, this one deals with background checks, and that one deals with secure storage, and this one deals with emergency protection orders. So it's there, even though it may not be flashing red saying firearms. It's the mechanics of how the system works. And I think they're both right. If we can get out of this week with fixing some of the foundation, that gives us a much stronger thing to build on and less excuses for why things can't get done. And so I think we have to keep that in mind. What's next for Voices after this is going to be getting this message out. We need to get outside of Davidson County. We need to think about long-term stability and long-term strategy, all of which we will do post this week of whatever we want to call it. Aaron?
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I think there's this perception, I think particularly among the legislators, that that this is just an urban issue, that we're dealing with this in Nashville, dealing with this in Memphis, maybe Chattanooga, but in the rural parts of Tennessee, which is the majority of our state, that firearm violence isn't an issue. One thing we need to remind them and remember is that the majority of deaths from firearms are actually suicides, 54% in Tennessee and nationwide. And that rate is higher in rural counties than it is in the urban counties. So East Tennessee has a suicide rate that is double that of the Memphis region. So there are parts of Tennessee that are struggling with this suicide issue from firearms. And unfortunately, if someone does, attempt suicide with a firearm, they're about 90% successful. Any other means, it's about 10%. So unfortunately, it is, suicide is often a cry for help. If they're using a firearm, you aren't going to get a chance to help them afterwards. So this is something that we have to, as Todd said, reach out to your friends, family, whoever else in other counties and engage them on this issue so that they can share this message with their legislators. And furthermore, we have to remind them that it also matters at the ballot box. There's, I think, also a perception that Second Amendment voters will show up and they will vote. We need to let them know that, frankly, we're also going to show up and vote, and not just in Nashville, but statewide, and that we're going to be voting on this issue. We're going to be contributing on this issue. We're going to be, continuing to come back and talk to them about this, because otherwise they're going to think this is, I don't want to say it's going to be a passing moment, but it's something that we have to continue to hold on to and remind them of.
Thank you, Aaron. This next question, I'm gonna give to Holly and Brian. Tobacco advertising was allowed when it became obvious that cancer kills. Can gun advertising be outlawed? Is this a viable strategy?
Well, I'm no constitutional scholar. I'm not even a lawyer, so I'm not even gonna pretend to answer that, but I think that that would be a federal conversation, right? So definitely, and I think this conversation needs to happen not just with your state legislature. This is where, this is where this conversation is happening this week. But that's a very, that's a very credible conversation there with your federal legislators too, Congress.
Great. Okay. This week, is there a specific part of session throughout the week that would be, thank you, that would be more important than others to be present for? So if folks want to get engaged, what would you recommend? Is there a certain time, a certain part of the week's process where it would be more important for people to get in, to be present for?
I would say the committee process, just because there's a smaller number of voting legislators there. You'll have access to the Cordell Hall building by being there for the committee. And you can go and talk to your legislators. I frankly find that the Capitol sessions, when they're in the legislative sessions, the public's not allowed on the floor. You can go to the galleries, but the likelihood of that building being full of very loud protesting people, and when it's that loud, no one's voice can be heard. So I don't find that that's a useful, but you all may tell me that's not right, but I don't find that it's super useful.
Thank you. Couple things. One, I would say we have a sign up process. I believe you can go through the website, the Voices website, to talk about when we need people to show up and be present. I think being present everywhere is always good, but I prioritize accordingly, right? So I think that's right.
Yeah, being present is great. But I think as Holly said, when you're in the Cordell Hall building, you have more of an opportunity to either visit with a legislator in their office, see them in committee, smaller group of people, less chaos than in the Capitol itself. When in the Capitol, you're in the gallery. I think it's important that we have voices in the gallery with the signs. Everyone needs to know that you guys are there and that you're everywhere and you're not going away.
And I'm going to ask you all to even maybe take a step back and imagine you're someone who's never been down there before, right? If you're someone who's just getting engaged on this issue, you're saying, go to the Cordell Hall building. They might not even know what that means, right? So what is that building? Like, what do you have to do to even go in there? You want to go meet with your legislator? What does that entail?
Right. So it is a building that is attached through tunnels to the Capitol. So it is part of the Capitol complex. Across from, a lot of people know where the Municipal Auditorium is in Nashville. It is just directly across the street from the Municipal Auditorium, it's kind of in between the Municipal Auditorium and the Capitol. It is the legislative complex. It's where every legislator has their own office and staff person located there. You will have to go through security. So you will have to carry your identification, your driver's license. They will check that as you come through. You will have to go through a metal detector. There'll be troopers there, a private security team that they have there doing the metal detectors. So much like you would experience going, into any of the congressional buildings, federal buildings, if you've ever done that. Not quite as intense as the airport, but still there's a lot of checking there. And then once you go into the building, the first floor does have all of the committee hearing rooms. So as you go up to the first floor of the Cordell Hall building, there's House hearing rooms on one side and Senate hearing room on the other side. And then the 4th through 7th floors are all House members and Senate members. The Senate is the 7th floor and the House is the 4th through 6th. Once you're in the building, you have the ability to go up and down those elevators into the hallways to see your state legislators. I believe Claudia and the team here prepared a pretty good document too that I think they can share with you as you get ready to head over there, just with some things on what to expect when you go over to the Cordell Hall. But that's a good question.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Holly. This one comes from Carol. I am 78 years old. I write legislators. I wish I could stand with you, but I can no longer do that. What else can I do?
Keep writing,
Yeah.
talk to your friends,
All.
get them to write, call. Always tell when you're interacting with a legislator, we really want it to be from their district. So it means a lot to them if it's someone who's driven up from Grundy County or something like that. Or wherever it is. Always acknowledge that you're with this group and you live in Tennessee, and give them your address, because they'll be getting tons of emails and stuff from out of state this week, phone calls. So first, you're a Tennessean, even better if you live in the district. So communicating, you don't have to be there in person. We're there in person for you. Just keep communicating that voice.
Thanks, Brian. Another question. I have heard that some members may move to immediately adjourn. What is the likelihood of this happening or being successful? And then second part of the question is, what should we do if that does happen?
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're going to have hearings. They're not going to. It was a rumor. I think at a time it would have happened. There might be some people that make those motions, but I think at this point there's a little bit more respect of the process and the governor and the citizens that have spoken up. There's been too many people contacting these folks. They can't. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not going to say definitely not going to happen, but
I think the motions may be tried, but they will not be successful. So, and I think we'll see that, we'll know that tonight. And once it's defeated tonight, I think the leadership is committed to doing something, getting through some work this week.
back to just basic processing, a motion would be something, we're a committee. And I make the motion to adjourn the special session. Then the committee chairman hears the motion, committee votes on it constitutionally, either by voice vote or by roll call vote. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Great. Here's a question for, I guess I'll take this one. Why is the audience today 80 or 90% women? I'm not sure I'm qualified to take this one. And how can we get more men involved? Great question. Look, I think, again, this started as a group of very concerned moms that spun up this organization in the beginning. Personally, I got involved. I'm a Republican. I'm a gun owner. But at the end of the day, I think more guys should stand up, because I think more guys actually feel the same way I do. Right. I think, I was taught firearm responsibility by my dad, and I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way. And I think we just need to get out there and reach them. We will do more of that. That is part of our strategy around outreach, and we will get more men involved, but I do think they're out there. And I just think we have to keep working it. I mean, Brian's here, Clay's here. I mean, I can look out and see a handful of guys, but you're right. It's 80 to 90%, but we'll get there. I mean, what do you think, Brian?
I mean, I echo the same thing. I'm a gun owner. I learned the tradition from my granddad who fought in World War II for this country. I think there's a lot of my friends, a lot of my male friends who feel the same way I do, and conservative male friends. And we need more bodies anyway. So we need more activity.
And I'm just going to add one thing here. As a mom, and I was just thinking about this the other day, I've called my legislator. I was like, you know what? I haven't had my husband do it. I could pretty easily write an email that I could just get him to send. So you moms in the, or wives, whatever, or you've got a brother, if maybe even just like holding their hand, giving them some text and say, hey, it would mean a lot to me if you could just send this in. Here's the email to send it to. That's just one simple, easy way to increase, the diversity of voices that the legislators are hearing from. So that's one thing that's on my to-do list.
No, I would agree with that. That's how I got involved, right? My wife said, "Hey, you should be thinking about this." And I said, yes, I should. So I would say that for everybody in the audience, that is the 80 to 90% female, talk to your husbands, talk to your brother, talk to your father, talk to your grandfather, talk to your cousins who are male, and get them engaged too, because I do agree that a diverse group of voices would be very, very helpful. Okay, are there grassroots plans and strategies for each district to influence certain legislators who are likely going to be holdouts? Again, I think we've covered this, right? The way to do this is to just keep having the discussion, keep doing the education, and we'll continue to do that. We've been very successful as an organization holding faith-based discussions. Getting out and talking to the business community. We did that last week in another neighboring county. And I think we just have to continue to do that. And that's how it will start to get hold. We have committees at Voices that are focused very much on engaging, whether it's the business leader grass tops, whether it's, your healthcare professionals, whether it's your faith community. We have people that are focused on this, and I think that it will be incumbent upon us and all of the volunteers to continue to reach out and say, "Hey, I've got contacts in Lake County." We're in 94 counties. We're not in Lake County yet. I've been to all 95 counties, and even I had to look up where Lake County was because I forgot. So, but if you have, relationships in other counties, find out if there's an opportunity to have a discussion. And I think that's how we'll continue to influence legislators who need to hear from folks about this issue. Okay, online question. Clearly somebody's got really pretty girly handwriting and I have a hard time reading it. If the governor thought special session was important, how do we keep encouraging him to keep our priorities in mind for the future? I'll turn that over to one of the lobbyists.
I think, I feel like I keep saying the same thing, but I think this goes back to the question about getting more men involved, getting more people involved, people from every county, and keeping the legislature and the governor interested in this is for us to stay engaged and to stay not just a passing event, I think as Aaron mentioned, but that we're here and we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to thank them for the steps they made, whether they're baby steps or big steps this week. We're going to thank them for those steps. And we're going to remind them, okay, now that we've done this sets the great groundwork for this next thing. Here's why that's important. So I think it's just to continue communicating with the governor and for him to keep hearing that this special session was great and we appreciate it, but we're ready to continue the conversation and we want to keep talking.
1 minute or one more? Oh, one more question. Thank you. Let me see. Well, there's some good ones in here. We did that. Best way to read through all the bills tonight. Just have to go online and read through them, and it's a slog. Can we, this is more of a constitutional question. Can we call for a referendum, and what does that entail? I don't think we don't have statewide referendums. That's right. Okay. Question online, question from online. Please speak to those who worry that as long as there is a GOP supermajority, nothing will get done. How do we stay resolute? Oh, okay. Can I take the first stab at this one?
Take it. Take it.
So again, as I said a minute ago, I'm a Republican, right? And I want change. And so I think there's more people out in this state like me. Yeah. Well, I have to go back and talk to the wife about that one too. But I think there's more people in the state like me, right? There are Republicans that care about this issue, and we need to just keep having the conversation in the districts. And I think that by doing that, whether it's a supermajority, whether it's a simple majority, I mean, at the end of the day, and I'm going to probably say something that's not going to be exciting to the group, but I was in politics in the 90s. Early 2000s, when it was a Democrat majority, they wouldn't have taken up this issue. this is something that's going to take time, right? I don't think it has to do with your party as much as it has to do with getting the people to speak up about what change they want to see. That's my personal opinion. I'll turn it over to the other three experts up here.
And we've talked to a lot of legislators in the last month or so since we've known this was coming. And I've been pleasantly surprised by a lot of Republican conversations that are willing to go a lot further than I think a lot of us in this room think they're willing to. It's just a matter of making sure that they feel supported in their communities by making those decisions, and that we're going to be pushing on their legislative peers to do the same thing. And those are two big lifts, is getting that community support and making sure that every community is telling their legislators the same thing, so that you don't have a senator from this one area who is willing to go further than we think they're willing to right now. They need to hear it from their community and from their other Senate peers.
Aaron, anything like to add? It's okay, you don't have to.
Sure. I mean, yes, I mean, I think, as parents, standing up for our kids is the most important thing we can do. And we can, I think we've got the mettle to do that. Like I said, 2012, Sandy Hook happened. We didn't see anything get done. 10 years later, we started to see progress. The experts who were at the table in 2012, they were the ones that got called on 10 years later. Those same groups who were showing up then, they were the ones that legislators then turned to get the information they need to get something done. So if we are that voice that keeps coming back, that stays there during those next few years, we'll be the ones they turn to when there is finally that opportunity that they're like, you're right. We realize this is what our constituents want. So I really encourage you all to stay there, because I would love for us to all have that opportunity to continue to provide the education and actually say to our kids, we made the change. And
Great. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Brian. And thanks for all the questions. I know we had some we didn't get to, but I've been told by the taskmaster that we are done with questions at the moment. So I think with that, I will ask Holly and Brian and Aaron to just exit stage left and or stage right, whatever way that is, and don't trip. And I would like to ask Nicole Smith and Katie Dickhouse to come up here for just a minute. And then we'll wrap up and let you guys get back to normal life today. Or go home and read bills, because again, it's slog. Thank goodness. Thought I was gonna be solo. Great. Everybody knows Katie. If you don't, Katie Dickhouse, this is everybody. I can say before I turn it over to Katie that I've been fortunate to spend time with her. And when I get up in the morning, this is why we do kind of what we do. So your strength is unbelievable.
First of all, we never can say thank you enough to what everyone is trying to do here. The amount of hours so many people have put into this organization and what has been going on has been incredible. And I wasn't even fully aware after everything happened in March. Mike and I, my husband, we were kind of on this, I can't even explain it. I just kind of felt like we were just floating. It just didn't seem like life was real. We just simply dropped our babies off at school. I'm a pretty anxious, worried person, and pretty much a safety net. I watch over my kids pretty fiercely. I couldn't do anything about this. We just dropped off at school. And we have some amazing supportive friends and connections to lawmakers. And so we just started meetings and just started going. I had no idea everything that was going on behind the scenes with this group. And once I also realized we were actually doing very similar things, a very similar approach. Our goal is to just have conversation. We want to show respect. There's so much noise on one side. There's so much noise on the other side. People are getting angry and so frustrated. And I understand that feeling of wanting to scream, but we have to work together and we have to not be fearful of these extreme noises, because that's not what the majority of people want. I'm realizing that so many people want to see change and so many people do deserve respect. And I do try my best to give these lawmakers the respect that what they're doing is they're in this amazing position and it's incredible. And so I am hopeful that we truly can work together to make a difference. Have to talk about my girls. We have two amazing, beautiful girls who we just, they're our world. Mike and we're very loving parents. We love our girls really, really hard. And for that, I'm so grateful. We tuck them in every night. We say our prayers. We do things as a family together a lot. I'm very thankful for that. Evelyn had a really good life. She's amazing. Very sweet, driven, kind, compassionate girl. Smart, funny, fierce. If she got mad, it was like a different child. So I was thankful for that side too, though. I've talked about the day that we got her school stuff back, and what a moment of legs feeling like they're going to buckle out from under me again. I couldn't believe it. It was a day I had been dreading. Her backpack, her schoolwork, so organized. She got things done well in advance. And we were about to meet with lawmakers for the first time, a new world. I do occupational therapy. My husband's in the medical field. This is a new world we're entering, but we're here. And I just didn't know what we were doing. And I couldn't believe, I still have a hard time believing that this is our new world we're presented with. And so the first book I grabbed out of Evelyn's backpack was her sweet little Saved by Grace Bible verse book. And the first verse I turned to was, finally, all of you have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. 1 Peter 3:8. And I instantly thought, okay, God, okay, Evelyn, let's go. Let's do this. Evelyn also, in her sweet school journal, she had this quote: give your time, give your heart, give your service, give someone something you made. It feels incredible, by Lin-Manuel Miranda. She wrote ways to be kind to others, compliments, remember birthdays, share ideas, lift others up, smile, help clean up. She did that better at school than she did at home, but that's okay. It's okay. I never really got under about it. Smile, golden rule, include others, sit next to others, apologize, laugh, kind words. I mean, the list just goes on. I have to show her picture too. I just want you guys to just, this is our girl. And we miss her every second of every day. And we don't want other people to continue to go through this. It's horrible. But we have also seen so much love and light and hope in such tragedy. And you all, Voices for Safer Tennessee, everybody here, you all are helping to continue to spread that. And we can't thank you enough. And we have to just keep working together and pushing forward and moving forward. And I am very well aware now of the process this is. That is very true. It will take a while, but the moments that we feel hope and the fact that this session is happening in this state, I feel like is a big deal. And I would say, just please stay involved in this and Voices in making a change as we continue to move forward after session. My husband said this in April to some lawmakers. He said, we're not going anywhere. We're here. So that's the truth. We're here. So thank you all. And we really, we love each one of you and we're so grateful. Thank you for your time and what you're doing. So please continue.
I think I speak for everyone in this room and watching virtually. Thank you, Katie. Thank you for reminding us of our why. Thank you for your bravery and your strength. My name is Nicole Smith, and I am president of the board of directors for Voices for a Safer Tennessee and one of the founding members. And sadly, I never had the chance to meet Evelyn. Man, I wish I did. But I've had the chance to get to know her mom over these past few months. And you are one of the bravest, strongest people I know. And Evelyn continues to live on through you. Thank you. We're here today for Evelyn and for every victim of gun violence across this state and across this country. That's our collective why. I'm often asked in this role what my why is, and that's my why. But I challenge each of you to think about your personal why as well. My why is my family, my husband, who's a survivor of gun violence, for my children, whose innocence I saw lost that day when I had to tell them about the horrific tragedy at Covenant. I will continue to use my voice for firearm safety, and I encourage you to use yours as well. In the earliest days when we decided to call this organization Voices for a Safer Tennessee, we thought a lot about the name. We did. And it became clear that the only way that we will make change is if we come together and sing in unison with all of our voices. Democrats, Republicans, independents, moms, dads, business leaders, faith leaders, you name it, we need your voice. We need it this week, we need it next week, next year, and in the years that follow. So today, as we close, I encourage you to keep using your voice. You heard so many people up here talk today about what you can do next, and I want to echo those sentiments. If you are not already a part of Voices for a Safer Tennessee, we need your voice at the table. Please visit safertn.org, where you can join our coalition. We will continue to keep you updated this week and well into the future on the ways that you can take action. Keep the conversation going in your neighborhoods, with fellow parents, in the car line. Make this a conversation that's comfortable to have. This cannot be a taboo subject anymore. This is not a political health or political issue. This is a public health crisis. talk to your lawmakers. We've talked a lot about that. Meet with them, call them, email them. Do that over and over and over. And if you feel so inspired, donate to Voices for a Safer Tennessee. You are helping to fuel our advocacy efforts, and we hope you'll stay involved and continue to learn more. So thank you to each and every one of you for being here today, for each of you that have joined us online. And we look forward to continuing to do this together.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicole. I think Katie had one more thing.
I had one more thing I thought about and I wrote it down and then I just go and I don't even know what I say sometimes. So one thing I want to kind of stress, because people are wondering just how do we continue to go about this? One thing that has stuck in my mind so much is just the word responsibility. That's such a strong word and it's such a meaningful word. And so I think there is so often it sounds like we're trying to take away rights. That's not the case. Even the word control, gun control can be so off-putting. We're simply trying to discuss about firearm responsibility. We have responsibilities to be a citizen in the United States. We have responsibilities at our jobs. We have responsibilities as parents. It's just talking about responsibility and not taking those responsibilities away, but rather putting them back into place. So I just think that is a very kind of respectful way to approach these conversations. And I feel like it has been helpful. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate it. I hope you've got something out of it today, and look for the updates and let the how they say it, let the games begin. Is that the right term? Whatever it is, we'll let the activity begin this evening. So thank you again.